Here we go. Another free webinar for you guys. Really excited about this one.
What's happening, people? We got a lot of people registered today. We got 1,235 people registered for today's webinar. Woohoo! I'm so happy I'm going to eat this tomato.
It's very exciting. And these are two super important topics. I mean, fatty liver and type 2 diabetes, how they're connected, how you can reverse both of them. So this is going to be fun.
Absolutely. These are actually two topics that are some of my favorite topics to talk about, to cover, to really educate about, and to learn a lot about it from you guys, because type 2 diabetes is prevalent, fatty liver is prevalent, and it turns out that they run together. So we'll go into a lot of detail today about what actually causes fatty liver, and why the causes of fatty liver sometimes are similar to those with type 2 diabetes and sometimes are not. But the beauty is that we can talk about the causes. We can also talk about ways to reverse both of them. Reversing type 2 diabetes is something that, happens all the time in our program. And a lot of people will actually reverse fatty liver at the same time. So we'll tell you the sort of subtle nuanced details about both of them.
Absolutely. And so we have a poll going here. You can fill out the poll. Tell us where you're coming from in the chat box. And I'm actually I got one email about a link not working. So let me look into that. I'll be right back. All
right. So we got a total of 257 people already out of 1,250 people. So this is great. And there's a poll in front of you that basically says, what type of diabetes are you living with? Is it type 1? Is it type 1.5? Is it pre-diabetes? Is it type 2? Or is it gestational? Or maybe you don't even have diabetes. So if you haven't voted on that yet, why don't you take a second and vote on that? I'll let that go for a little while longer. And then in the chat box, tell us where you're living. I see we got North Carolina, James from New Orleans, Brendan from Kaplan, Louisiana, Enza from Australia. Nice work. Victor from UC Riverside. What's up, Victor? Gail from Bowie, Maryland, Illinois. Yeah, you guys must be freezing out there. Must be freezing. I saw someone from Dubai. That's pretty good. Luis from Portugal. I love this. Austin, Texas. Antioch, California. New York City. Rabbit. What's up, my man? Lynn from Redlands, California. Charlie from Pengrove. Ooh, that's California. Jackie from Florida. Cool. You guys are all over the place. This is great to see. All right, let me go take a look at this poll here because I always like to see this. Okay, 50% of you are living with type 2 diabetes. 16% of you don't have diabetes. Approximately 10% of you guys are here because a loved one has diabetes, and then 20% have prediabetes. This is without doubt the lowest type 1 and type 1.5 diabetes turnout I've ever seen. It's only 5% of you. And it makes sense. It makes perfect sense because people with type 1 diabetes are generally not trying to reverse fatty liver disease. And fatty liver and prediabetes, or fatty liver and type 2 tend to run together. So this makes perfect sense. It's just quite interesting to see. All right, so I'm going to end this poll. And how do you feel about getting started, Robbie? Should we do this?
Let's do it. Let's get started.
Andrew Chuma, how you doing, buddy? It's good to see you here from Pennsylvania. I love it. Gary, Enrique. Gary says, has this started? It's about to start, Gary. You're about to have some fun. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And let me know if it looks right.
Okay, I see your screen. It looks full screen. It looks great.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right. So today's webinar is about fatty liver, how you can reverse fatty liver and type 2 diabetes at the exact same time. Here's what we'll cover. Number one, what is fatty liver disease and what actually causes it? Number two, why does fatty liver cause insulin resistance or vice versa? And how does this elevate your blood glucose, your cholesterol, and your triglyceride levels? Because there's a very strong correlation between what's happening in your liver and what's happening in your blood. So we'll talk about that. Number 3, why do low carbohydrate diets actually cause fatty liver disease? And then number 4, what's the deal with statin medications? Are they helpful? Are they not helpful? Are they required? Are they maladaptive? And then number 5, our favorite part, is how to reverse fatty liver using your diet. As always, we highly recommend staying till the end because we have an awesome bonus offer for you that we think you are. Actually, we have 2. You know what? I'm pretty sure we have 4 bonuses today, if I'm not mistaken. 3 or 4 bonuses, and I think you're going to love every single one of them. So don't go anywhere. In case you don't know me, my name is Cyrus. I was diagnosed with 3 autoimmune conditions when I was 22. The 3 autoimmune conditions are, number 1, Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, which is, I recognized that I had that because I felt terribly sluggish. Went to the doctors and they said, oh, you have an autoimmune hypothyroidism. Number 2, alopecia universalis, which is why I have no hair. I have no eyebrows, no eyelashes, no armpit hair. I am currently growing neck hair. I think I have 4 neck hairs on my left, and I think I have 7 on my right. So with the exception of those hairs, I got nothing. And then within 6 months, I ended up developing type 1 diabetes. I was a senior at Stanford University at the time. I was studying engineering, and all of a sudden, all 3 of these descended upon me at the same time, and it really freaked me out. So my doctors basically said, hey, Cyrus, the only way to manage type 1 diabetes in particular, since that's the most dangerous of the 3, is to eat a low carbohydrate diet. So, they told me to eat more meat, more eggs, more bacon, more cheese, more butter. And you're talking to a guy who already liked eating those foods anyway. So I said, great, I'm just going to do that. So that was supposed to make my blood glucose nice and controllable, but that surely did not happen at all. And the exact opposite happened. I got really low energy. I became super depressed, super anxious. I couldn't really exercise very much. And my blood glucose meter became this random number generator. And every day of every time I checked my blood glucose, it could be high, it could be low, it could be high, it could be low. And it was just unbelievably difficult. So about a year into this process, I said, you know what, I'm going to take matters in my own hands. I'm going to learn how to eat, because up until that point, I had never learned nutrition. So under the guidance of a very well-trained nutrition specialist, he showed me how to eat these foods: fruits, vegetables, colors, lots of carbohydrate-rich foods. And I was nervous, if I ate carbohydrate-rich foods, well, my glucose is going to go through the roof and my insulin use is going to go through the roof, right? But here's what happened. My carbohydrate intake went up big time. I started about 125 grams per day. I went up to about 600 grams per day within the first 3 weeks. And I was expecting that my insulin use would also do the same thing. But in this process, what happened is that my carbohydrate intake went up in blue, and then my fat intake came down in red. And that was part of the design of this process. And so here I am expecting my insulin use to go up, but my insulin use fell by 43% in 3 weeks. So this was the first time that I recognized that, I was eating more carbohydrate, significantly more carbohydrate for less insulin. And this divergence between glucose and insulin became very interesting to me, because that's not supposed to happen. But what I did notice is that my insulin use and my fat use or my fat intake were very similar. The less fat I ate, the less insulin I needed. And that was really interesting to me, because nobody had ever explained that maybe there's a connection between the 2 of them. So here's the traditional diabetes model. If you eat less carbohydrate, then you have less blood glucose, and then you use less insulin. Okay, great. So eat less carbohydrate, because that's the way to use less insulin. But that was not the case. I was eating more carbohydrate, more of this stuff, and I was getting less insulin. So that seemed very counterintuitive. So then I went back to school. I studied for 5 years to get a PhD in nutritional biochemistry at UC Berkeley. And while I was there, I studied insulin resistance for 5 years to try and understand what causes it, what can you do about it, how can you reverse it, is it reversible, in what proportion of the population, how do you do it using food, how do you do it using exercise, how do you do it using intermittent fasting. So in this process, I was able to read thousands of scientific papers, and I wrote a thesis specifically on insulin resistance. So here I am today. I've decreased my insulin use by 40%. I eat sometimes upwards of 900 grams of carbohydrate per day, usually about 800 on a daily basis. I inject about 25 units of insulin, and my A1C values are always between 5.4 and 5.7 every time I get them checked. and life is awesome. It's just plain awesome.
I love that. It never gets old hearing that story and the conclusion of just life being amazing. So my name is Robbie Barbero. I'm also known on the social media interwebs as Mindful Diabetic Robbie, where I love sharing my lifestyle and the abundance of what can be eaten when following a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 12 years old. So that was in 2000, over 18 years ago now. And at that time, I was following the standard American diet. And I was feeling terrible on a lot of levels, but I had allergies all year round. No matter, I took everything, Nasonex, Claritin D. I tried all kinds of different medications. I was still getting sick no matter what I was taking, but still kept on taking it. I had terrible acne, again, trying everything, microdermabrasion treatments, laser treatments, pills, everything, until eventually I went on Accutane, which is one of the most serious drugs you can possibly take for acne. And I also suffered from plantar fasciitis. So as a kid, I was a competitive tennis player, and this was really frustrating. It was painful, and I would do whatever I could to try and fix this problem. So I wore these big blue boots at night, which was supposed to help, and it never really helped that much, but I kept on doing it because I kept on trying. Why not? So as a person living with type 1 diabetes, you start learning, how can I take better care of myself? How can I prevent complications? Of course, I started doing research and come across a low carbohydrate diet. So I ended up trying the Weston A. Price Foundation program, and this program had to limit fruit. It was too high in sugar, and most of the calories are coming from raw milk and grass-fed beef. And that didn't go so well. I had a lot of troubles with that. And I Googled more, I learned, and I found a plant-based version. So every step along my journey, it's like new information made more sense. Okay, this is logical. Okay, I'll try that. So the plant-based version, that made a lot of sense compared to the animal-based one. So I started doing that. And here, again, I can't have fruit. Carbohydrates are the enemy. I got to have getting my calories from fat. So lots of nuts, nut butters. I remember eating celery with almond butter as a snack pretty much all day long. I was consuming plenty of olive oil in my salads, lots of greens, lots of vegetables, but again, avoiding fruits. And this didn't work so well either. I was not feeling well. My energy was low. So I was on campus at the University of Florida at the time, and there were several situations where I almost blacked out. And at this point, I was starting to get scared. So I went back to a naturopath that I had seen in the past. And I'm like, what's next? What can I do? And she suggested that chelation therapy might be the next best step, and that maybe heavy metals and a lot of toxins were causing my problem. So I tried that, and I was considering doing it. So that was and she gave me a lot more pills and a lot of supplements, but I was in between. But I did not decide to do that because I heard a podcast. I heard a podcast where a guy was talking about eating fruits and vegetables, and then actually being great for ideal health. And I was blown away, and it made a lot of sense. So I started looking at this material. I signed up for his coaching program, and off to the races, I start eating nothing but fruits and vegetables. And I was blown away by my improvement in insulin sensitivity. So the amount of carbohydrates that I could eat for the insulin that I needed was it was mind-blowing. I could not believe what was happening. And I was getting lots of low blood glucose in the beginning, which is something we now help people prevent. And it was really exciting that I could eat these foods. And I started to feel good. I was enjoying it. I was eating new fruits I'd never had before. You see a persimmon in the middle of the picture on the slide here. And it was really fun. So now it's 11 years later, countless years of research and learning and applying to my own body. I found that, this is the way. And we're going to go into detail tonight on why it works on a scientific level, how it applies to people living with type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, and you're going to learn a lot. So glad to have you with us. Let's get into it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Robbie, your story never gets old either, by the way. I think we should take turns telling each other stories one day. That might be fun. Okay, so here's question number one. What the heck is fatty liver, and what the heck causes fatty liver? Because it can be confusing, and I want to make sure that you guys really understand that. All right, so here's your liver in the middle. Your liver is a happy tissue. Now, your liver is located basically right in the middle of your abdomen. It's actually much bigger than you think. Your liver weighs about 7% of your total body mass, and it is without question the hardest working tissue in your body. Yeah, your heart's important. Yeah, your brain is important, no question about it. But your liver actually performs more different types of metabolic reactions than any other tissue in your body. And by that, here's what I mean. Number one, your liver is capable of storing glucose. So it has a whole bunch of machinery that's responsible for uptaking glucose out of your blood and storing it inside. Number two, your liver can also produce glucose and dump that back into your blood. Number three, your liver can manufacture fatty acids and put that into your blood. Number four, your liver can also clear fatty acids out of your blood. Number five, your liver can manufacture cholesterol and put that into your blood. Number six, your liver can also clear cholesterol from your blood. So you can see here that, you know, your liver is basically a two-way organ. It can put things into your blood and it can also take things out. And it does that for glucose and fatty acids and cholesterol. On top of that, your liver is highly involved in making sure that you can eat food. And so in order to do that, your liver manufactures a stuff called bile, and bile is required in order to help you emulsify or break down fatty acids and protein-rich foods. On top of that, when you use things like aspirin or metformin or lisinopril or other oral medications required for combating either chronic diseases or for, like traumatic, situations like a broken ankle, those oral medications have to get detoxified and have to get basically you cleared from your blood. So your liver does that. Your liver pulls them out of the blood, it detoxifies them, it breaks them down into less harmful compounds, and then it puts them right back into your blood. On top of that, your liver also clears old and damaged red blood cells out of your blood. It also performs amino acid metabolism, which means that amino acids that are present inside of your blood as a result of eating protein-rich foods end up getting cleared by your liver. Then it produces this stuff called urea, and that's the yellow stuff that you pee out. And then on top of that, when you drink alcohol, your liver has to do something with that. So all of the alcohol metabolism to prevent you against getting drunk, or to actually make sure that when you are drunk, that you don't stay drunk for the rest of your life, your liver does all that. So it's very important to understand that, you know, your liver is doing a lot of things all the time, 24 hours a day. Your liver is involved in not tens, not hundreds, but thousands of chemical reactions. It's unbelievable. So your liver, because it's doing so many things all the time, it's like the multitasking hero of your body. Your liver, whatever it does, has a direct impact on, number one, your brain. Number two, your muscle tissue. Number three, your heart. Number four, your blood vessels. Number five, your kidneys. And number six, your adipose tissue. So every single moment of every single day, your liver is making sure that it is performing a whole collection of metabolic reactions to maximize the health and maximize the operation of each of these tissues. And so when you put your liver at risk by consuming foods that are high in fat and high in protein, as you're going to learn in a second, you end up causing problems in all of these tissues. And that's why it's really important to understand that if you just control the health of your liver, then the health of all these other tissues indirectly increases. All right, so here's your liver in the center, okay? What you put into your mouth determines what your liver stores. So if you consume lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, lots of antioxidant-rich foods that happen to be low in fat, low in protein, and higher in their carbohydrate intake, you eat things like legumes, which also follow the same macronutrient profile. You also eat things like whole grains, which follow the same macronutrient profile. Then you end up with a picture that looks like this, which is that you can store lots of blue, and blue represents glucose, and you end up storing small amounts of yellow, which is fatty acids, and small amounts of cholesterol, shown in red, okay? And that makes perfect sense because the actual chemical composition of fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains is exactly this: mainly carbohydrate, small amounts of fat, small amounts of protein, and non-existent cholesterol. And the cholesterol that you see here inside of your liver is actually manufactured by your liver itself. So small amounts of cholesterol are totally normal and completely physiologically relevant. It's just that these red circles are not coming from your diet. They're coming from inside of your liver. Now, if instead you decided to eat a diet that was higher in meat, higher in chicken, higher in fish, higher in dairy products, and higher in eggs, then the fuel inside of your liver would change. And rather than having lots of glucose and small amounts of fatty acids and cholesterol, you'd see a slightly different picture. You'd see less glucose storage. There'd be less blue stored inside of your liver, and there would be more red and more yellow, which means more cholesterol and more fatty acids. So again, the nutritional composition of these foods matches the nutritional composition of what's inside of your liver. So when people say you are what you eat, they literally mean that the fuels, the proportion of fuels that come into your mouth determine the proportion of fuels that go inside of tissues, and your liver is no exception to that rule. So fatty liver disease has a number of different stages. Okay, you start out with a healthy liver right here shown on the left, and then as you increase your total fat intake going directly into your mouth, you end up with a slightly fatty liver. So this is where deposits of fat are, positioned inside of your muscle tissue, or sorry, stored inside of your liver, and that leads to a slightly enlarged liver. And then over the course of time, as that process continues, you end up progressing to the next stage, which is called liver fibrosis. And in liver fibrosis, this is where you form scar tissue. This is when your liver is in a very, very high degree of distress. And then from liver fibrosis, you end up going to the next stage, which is called liver cirrhosis. And this is basically, you can refer to this as liver failure or as end stage liver failure. So this is where the scar tissue now becomes so abundant that there's actually connective tissue, lots of connective tissue, which is laid down inside of this. These are like collagen networks, which end up creating a liver that's not only enlarged, not only containing too much fatty acids, but you actually end up with these. If you cut somebody open and you take a look at their liver, it actually has these small little boils all over the place. It looks like your liver is bubbling. Okay, so there's this multiple different stages leading to complete liver failure down the road. Now, what we're going to be focusing on right here is this stage 1, which is fatty liver, right? The further you go down this line and the further you go down the spectrum, the harder it is to go back. So if you start with it, you're born with a healthy liver, and over the course of time, you end up developing a fatty liver. For the most part, going back to a healthy liver is actually a reversible process. So we're focusing right here on these 2 stages for the rest of the webinar. So fatty liver disease, no matter what you read on the internet, no matter what your friend tells you, no matter what you've heard in the past, fatty liver disease is caused by the accumulation of excess fat in your liver. And that is resulting from a large consumption of foods that are high in fat and foods that are high in cholesterol. Okay, so as the name implies, fatty liver results from eating fatty foods. Now, insulin resistance, funny enough, is caused by the storage of fat in tissues that are not designed to store fat. So look how similar these 2 definitions are. Okay, fatty liver disease is caused by the accumulation of excess fat in your liver, and insulin resistance is caused by the excess of storage fat in all tissues that are not designed to store fat. Now, it just so turns out that your liver and your muscle are the 2 tissues that take the biggest beating when you consume a diet that's high in fat. And so as a result of that, both your liver and your muscle end up developing the largest amount of insulin resistance. So here's what an insulin-sensitive liver looks like. Again, take a look at their distribution of blue versus yellow versus red. Lots of blue, small amounts of yellow, small amounts of red. When you go to an insulin-resistant liver, you're still capable of storing fuel. It's just that the distribution of fuel changes. There's less blue, there's more yellow, and there's more red. All right. So here's the question then. If you have developed fatty liver over the course of time, and maybe you're at that stage 1 where you're having a slightly enlarged liver, okay, well then why is your blood glucose going to go up? Why is your cholesterol going to go up? And why are your triglycerides going to go up? What's the deal with that? Okay, so it's important to understand that when you eat foods that are high in fat and high in protein, you end up with this distribution of small amounts of blue and large amounts of yellow and large amounts of red. Now, in this situation, what your liver is trying to accomplish is your liver's in a state of panic and your liver's saying, oh my God, get this stuff out of me, okay? So just think, whenever somebody says fatty liver, just think your liver's full, your liver's distressed, your liver's just trying to get rid of stuff. So how does it do it? Well, one of the ways that it can do it is by taking some of this fuel and dumping it into your blood. So the first thing that your liver will do in this situation is it will try and get rid of cholesterol. So the more cholesterol that accumulates inside of your liver, the larger the amount of cholesterol that gets exported into your blood. So your liver will literally just take the cholesterol and it'll repackage it into brand new VLDL particles, which will then turn into LDL particles, which increase your risk for heart disease. And these LDL particles will circulate in your blood. And then when you go get your cholesterol measured, the doctor says, hey, how come you have high cholesterol, right? It's because your liver is carrying too much to begin with. On top of that, your liver is also going to try and get rid of the fatty acids that have accumulated over time because, again, your liver's saying, get this stuff out of me. I don't want it. I'm not designed to store it. Please get out, get out, get out. So it starts to secrete fatty acids into your blood as well. And then on top of that, what makes it even more of a pain is that your liver also secretes more glucose into your blood because it's in a state of distress. And so it's going to try and offload any fuel that it can. Anything that has a caloric value to it, anything that has energy, your liver is going to say, get out, get out, get out. So it first gets rid of cholesterol, then it gets rid of fatty acids, then it gets rid of glucose. In reality, it's not 1, 2, 3. It's getting rid of all three of them at the same time. And that's a problem because over the course of time, you end up with high levels of cholesterol, high levels of fatty acids, and high levels of glucose in your blood. So as soon as this glucose starts to accumulate in your blood and you end up with higher and higher glucose levels, now your liver says, oh, wait a minute, there's more glucose in your blood. Now it's my turn to start making more insulin because insulin's job is to try and clear that glucose and get it out. So your pancreas basically responds and says, I see that glucose. I will match you by making more insulin. So here's the question then. What's the problem with exporting glucose? Okay. Here's the problem with exporting glucose. Number one, when your liver is trying to dump or offload as much glucose as possible, you end up with an increased fasting blood glucose. First thing in the morning, you wake up and you say, how come my fasting glucose is high? That's weird. Number two, you end up with an increased post-meal blood glucose. So you eat a meal and then an hour, 2 hours later, you check your blood glucose, it's still high. Okay, number three, you can get increased blood glucose variability, which means that sometimes your glucose can be high, sometimes your glucose can be low, and you end up with larger fluctuations between the two of them. And then the fourth thing that can happen is that you end up with larger amounts of insulin in your blood, again, because your pancreas is trying to help and trying to bring your blood glucose value down, and it does so by manufacturing and secreting more insulin. Now, next question. Here's a question that you might ask yourself or you might ask your doctor. Say, hey, what's going on? How come my fasting blood glucose is elevated, right? And this is the thing that most people don't get right. And this is something that you're already a world's expert in this. You already know more than most of the population. You already know more than what most doctors are trained in medical school. The reason that your fasting glucose is elevated is not because you're eating too many carbohydrate-rich foods. I will say that again. The reason why your fasting glucose is elevated is not because you're eating too many glucose or carbohydrate-rich foods. It's because your liver is suffering from fatty acid overload. So eat more fat-rich foods, end up with more glucose in your blood. This connection right here is so confusing to most people that the paleo community doesn't understand it. The ketogenic community doesn't understand it. The low carbohydrate community doesn't understand it. And I'm not trying to talk, smack about any of those communities, but if you read the books, they'll tell you that your glucose is elevated because you're eating too much sugar, because you're eating too many bananas, because you're eating too much fruit. That is not the case. Now, here's the deal with cholesterol. When your liver's in this state where it's accumulated excess cholesterol, it ends up dumping cholesterol into your blood, as we talked about earlier. So this results in more VLDL, and those VLDL particles turn into LDL particles. Then those LDL particles are the #1 risk factor for heart disease, the #1 risk factor for heart attack. There are papers that show that there is a very strong positive correlation between the amount of LDL in your blood and your risk for cardiovascular disease or your risk for developing a stroke or a heart attack. So it's very important to get your LDL cholesterol down beneath 100 without question. Get it down, and when you get it down, then your risk for cardiovascular disease goes down. The problem is that when there's too much red inside your liver, then there's too much red inside your blood, and now your LDL is elevated. So LDL can be a problem because it increases arterial plaque, which then increases your blood pressure, increases your risk for hypertension. And then, as a result of that, you go to your doctor, and your doctor might recommend that it's time to get on a statin medication. Okay, so it's kind of this, it's a series of dominoes. First this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. And then the worst part about this is that people who have higher cholesterol die quicker. Okay, I'll say that again. People who have higher cholesterol die quicker. So increased risk for all-cause mortality. This is just a super nerd scientific way of saying premature death. The more LDL cholesterol you have in your blood, the shorter your lifespan is likely to be. So then you might ask yourself this question, well, how come every time I go to my doctor says, get on a statin, get on a statin, get on a statin? And I know without question, a lot of you in the room are on statin medications. So if you are on a statin medication, do me a favor. In the chat box, I want you to write the word statin, S-T-A-T-I-N. So if you are taking a statin medication, write the word statin in the chat box, because I want to just get an idea for how many of you are actually taking a statin medication. What do we see here?
See a lot of statins coming in, a lot. Here we go. It's flooding in.
Okay, Karen, Jenny, Greg, Buva, Connie, Ted, Julie, Marta, Susan, Ken, Sally, Richard, James. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So a lot of you guys are taking this. A lot of them. Brian, Ram, Lori, Diana. Okay.
We see somebody say statin and it's not helping.
Yeah, exactly. So statin medications have a laundry list of side effects, and we'll go into that in a second here. Okay. John says statin, but no more. Yeah, John, I like it. I like it. I think you guys are going to be really pleased with. There's actually an alternative statin medication that's even more effective, and it has 0 side effects. Here we go. So again, you might ask this question, well, what's the deal with statins? How come my doctor's saying I need statins, I need statins? How come every time I look on the internet for high cholesterol, the answer is take a statin medication? Well, your doctor's not a bad person. Your doctor's looking out for your health. Your doctor wants to minimize your risk for heart disease and death. And so they're doing what they know to be true, and they can't be faulted for that. Okay, but again, it's because your liver is suffering from cholesterol overload. Now, number 3, why is fatty acid export a problem? Okay, again, start with your liver. It's got lots of yellow inside. So it's trying to export that yellow into your blood. Well, guess what happens when you export fatty acids into your blood? Boom, increased triglycerides. You go to the doctor. You get your fasting lipid panel measured, and they measure, your LDL cholesterol is elevated and your triglycerides are also elevated. Well, where does that stuff come from? Okay, again, your liver saying, get out. I don't want you. I'm done. So when your triglyceride levels go up, then your risk for arterial plaque development goes up, which means you're going to have higher blood pressure. You're going to be at a higher risk for cardiovascular disease. And again, you're at an increased risk for premature death or all-cause mortality. So it's a very similar cascade of events that happens when you're exporting fatty acids as when you are exporting cholesterol. So then you ask your same question, well, how come my triglycerides are chronically elevated? It doesn't matter when I get them measured, whether it's fasting, whether it's not fasting. I go to the doctor, my triglycerides are high. Again, it's because your liver is suffering from fatty acid overload. So I think by now you guys probably see the connection. You guys see the same pattern that's happening over and over and over again. Now, this is where low carbohydrate diets come into play. In this situation, a lot of medical professionals and a lot of people will basically say, oh, well, you know, you got elevated blood glucose, you got elevated cholesterol. I know the answer. It's a low carbohydrate diet. Because here's why. A low carbohydrate diet can reduce all of that. Again, remember, if your glucose is elevated, that means you're eating too much sugar, right? It means you're eating too much carbohydrate, right? It's because you ate too much bananas. You ate too many, too many persimmons. You ate too much oatmeal. That's the reason why your glucose is high, right? Okay? Well, it turns out that low carbohydrate diets are high fat diets by design. So let's call them what they really are, right? We're going to call it a high fat diet. It's a high fat, high protein diet. And here's why doctors love them. Here's why people in the diabetes world absolutely love low carbohydrate diets. Because the minute you try a low carbohydrate / high fat diet, you can benefit from any of the following. Number one, rapid weight loss. This is very common. You start eating a low carbohydrate diet and boom, weight starts flying right off of you. Number two, blood glucose variability gets squashed. And now all of a sudden you have a flatline blood glucose, right? Lower fasting blood glucose, lower glucose all throughout the day. Your hemoglobin A1C can come down. If you're using insulin, your insulin use can go way down, or you can stop using insulin. Your cholesterol level can fall. Your triglyceride levels can fall. I mean, this is a miracle as far as lots of people in the world of diabetes are concerned, because all of these things are favorable adaptations, right? We're trying to lose weight, drop your glucose, drop your A1C, drop your insulin use, drop your cholesterol, drop your triglycerides, and you can do all of that simply by eating more meat and less carbohydrates. The problem, here's the problem. Low carbohydrate diets increase your risk for chronic disease in the long term. So let me go backwards. These improvements that you see on the screen right here, these are short-term improvements. These are short-term improvements. I'll say that over and over and over again. These are short-term improvements. These do not last into the long term. So it's very easy to get tricked into believing that just because this is happening over the first, call it 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, maybe even year, all of these improvements are happening. You're like, cool, great, awesome, awesome. You know, I'm getting healthier. But then boom, in the long term, here's what happens. Number one, your risk for heart disease goes through the roof. You end up with a much higher risk for hypertension. You end up with a risk for high cholesterol. Your triglycerides can go up, and your blood vessels would go into a state of distress, and that distress is called atherosclerosis. At the same time, by eating a high-fat, high-protein diet, you end up actually eating yourself into insulin resistance. So you actually are avoiding carbohydrate, and that's doing a good thing for your blood glucose, because you're just avoiding eating carbohydrate-rich foods, so you're avoiding putting glucose in your mouth. And as a result, great, your glucose flatlines. But what you're not able to measure and what you're not seeing is that your blood vessels are taking a hit, and your liver and muscle are now accumulating fat over time, which means that the second that you try and eat a banana, good luck, it doesn't work. Increased inflammation. Low carbohydrate diets increase your risk for cancer, for kidney failure, and for total body inflammation. Low carbohydrate diets also can result in low energy, digestive problems that are really, really challenging to fix, these ridiculous food cravings that become overwhelming at times. And then in the long term, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I lost a lot of weight to begin with, but now I'm stuck. Can't lose any more weight. Okay? The one in the middle is the one I want to highlight, fatty liver. By eating a low carbohydrate diet, you eat yourself into fatty liver. And that's a problem because fatty liver, like we showed you, increases your risk for premature death. And I don't want that, and I don't think you do either. So let's talk about statin medications, okay? Statins are Band-Aid treatments. Band-Aid treatments, okay? They are prescribed by medical professionals because they are the go-to tool for reducing blood cholesterol. Again, doctors are not bad people. They're wonderful human beings. They want to help. The only real tool that doctors are taught in medical school when it comes to cholesterol reduction is statin medications. Now, if you look into the literature, you'll find that statins are not safe. Okay, so you go paper after paper after paper, and you'll find things like this. Number one, if you use statin medications, and I'm not talking large doses, I'm talking things like 5 to 10 to 15 milligrams per day, you end up with increased risk for things like hemorrhagic stroke. This is a deadly stroke. Peripheral neuropathy. This is lightning bolts going through your hands and your legs. This is why, you might end up waking up in the middle of the night where not able to feel your toes or getting numbness and tingling and burning sensations. Cognitive impairment. This increases your risk for Alzheimer's disease. This is very dangerous in the long term. Okay, increases your risk for cancer. Much like low carbohydrate diets, statin themselves can increase your cancer risk, especially breast cancer. And then in men, a lot of men see erectile dysfunction by the use of statin medications. Personally, I don't want any of these things. Again, you go to the literature one more time. Okay, it turns out that statin medications, they actually increase your risk for diabetes. So in one paper, this is a meta-analysis. Okay, so meta-analysis basically means this is a paper that analyzes other papers. So rather than doing their own experiment, they basically said, hey, let's take a look at all the experiments that already exist and let's figure out what they figured out, and then we'll summarize it. So here, where they basically said, we identified more than 174 cases of incident diabetes in the groups assigned to statin treatment, which means that when you use statins, you actually increase your diabetes by approximately 9%. That may seem like a small number to you, but in reality, if you're increasing your risk for diabetes by taking statin medication, even by a few percent, something's just inherently wrong with that. It doesn't make any sense. It's just completely confusing. Okay, again, another meta-analysis. Check this one out. Okay, this one's concluded that using statins increases your risk for diabetes by 12%. So it's a little bit more, right? But they found the same association, that more statins means more diabetes. More statins means more diabetes. So you go to your doctor, you say, hey, doctor, what do I do about my high cholesterol? And then your doctor says, here, use the statin medication. And then 3 years down the road, now you have type 2. Something's wrong. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. So the real million-dollar question then becomes, all right, Cyrus, fine, I get it. High fat, high protein, low carbohydrate means, high cholesterol, high fatty acid storage inside of my liver, resulting in a whole host of problems. So what can you do to reverse fatty liver using your diet? How is it even possible? Is it even possible? That's when we get into low-fat, plant-based, whole food nutrition. So I'm going to let Robbie take it over from here because he's the man, the myth, the legend when it comes to this stuff.
Okay, so guys, look at the colors on this screen. Look at the colors. This is what we get to eat when following a low-fat, plant-based, whole food lifestyle. It's really fun and it tastes amazing. So let's get into the details here. Let's go into it. So we have developed a coaching program, and this program is designed to teach you how to do exactly what Cyrus was just talking about in this entire presentation, how to implement it into your life to get these results of truly reversing insulin resistance. So it's a first of its kind program. I'm excited to tell you all about it. So let's cover the basics here of what can be eaten on this program. So we have green light, yellow light, and red light. So these categories make it very easy and clear what to eat. So in the green light category, we have fruits. That's, again, like you can actually eat all the fruit you want if you're eating whole fruits. So we're talking bananas, pears, persimmons, apples, you name it, it's part of our program and it reverses insulin resistance. Non-starchy vegetables, big part of our program. Starchy vegetables, yes, that includes potatoes, yams, butternut squash, all that stuff on the program. Beans, lentils, and peas, these are staples of some of the longest lived societies on the planet. This was the staple of their diet. Green leafy vegetables, intact whole grains, intact is the key word, herbs and spices, all right? All in the green light category. Now, the yellow light category. So where these foods, nuts, seeds, avocados, coconuts, olives, those foods, those are all whole plant foods, but they're in the yellow light category because those are high fat plant foods. So you can't, if you want to reverse insulin resistance, reverse fatty liver, you can't sit down and just eat those in unlimited quantities like you can with the green light category. So these aren't foods we're saying don't ever eat. They're still part of the program, but they're in small quantities. Same thing with pastas and breads. So pastas, you can have brown rice pasta. But in working with our coaching program over thousands of people, we see the nuances and the details. And if you can, eating the intact whole grain of brown rice is going to be better than eating brown rice pasta. So again, it's not saying don't ever have it. We work with people in their preferences, but it's in the yellow light category because it's not an intact whole grain. Same thing with breads. Breads are processed. Whatever that bread was originally made out of, that's the ideal food to eat in its intact whole form. Okay, so that's the yellow light category. Red light category. Dairy products are out. Eggs, red and white meat, fish and shellfish, oils of any kind are out because they are the most processed food on the planet. They are pure fat. They've taken out pretty much all the vitamins, the minerals, carbohydrate, the protein. It's just nothing but fat. It is incredibly processed. It's not part of our program. And then you have refined sugars, pastries, and bread. So those are pretty obvious. We all know not to have those. Those are in the red light category. Okay? Here's some pictures of what these foods can be made into. The types of meals are delicious. They're colorful. They're yummy. You have like a bean stew up there in the right corner. You have vibrant fruits on the bottom. You have a soup. You got a burger there made out of whole ingredients. It's really fun stuff. And again, at Mastering Diabetes, we are very fruit friendly. It's something we're really passionate about, and it works so well. And we see the people enjoying the most amount of fruit, getting a lot of very quick, healthy results.
So let me go backwards here. We held a webinar. We've held a couple of these webinars that are specifically about AMLA. And it's basically the insane your life. That's what we talked about before. And the reason we want to talk about it is because AMLA is an insane superfood, and it can absolutely change your life, especially if you're living with fatty liver. So let me go into a little bit of detail here about what AMLA is and give you guys a little bit of a heads up in case you've never heard of it before, because it's unbelievable how powerful this stuff is. So just as the picture you see here describes, AMLA is gooseberries. They're Indian gooseberries that are grown primarily in India. And they're these sort of green, berries that are about the size of, I don't know, maybe like a large grape or so. And they have veins on the inside, and they're incredibly sour. It's very challenging to eat these berries. However, if you can find a way to palate them, what studies have shown is that over the course of as little as 21 days, in people who start out with elevated LDL cholesterol, the cholesterol can go down significantly. And when I say significantly, I mean by as much as 30 or 40%. Okay, this is equivalent to, if not better than, statin medication. Okay, AMLA has also shown to increase HDL cholesterol, which is the quote unquote good cholesterol. So patients that start with HDL cholesterol right here in the middle 40s can end up with HDL cholesterol as high as 80. Average of about 55 to 60. This right here represents about a 15 to 20% increase over the span of just 3 weeks. And then as far as triglycerides is concerned, AMLA can take elevated triglyceride values right here, and it can bring them down significantly, more so than it can with your HDL cholesterol. I'm sorry, with your LDL cholesterol. So researchers know this, and the research world is trying to understand exactly why this is the case. Like, what is the magic in AMLA, and are there any side effects of using it? Because this stuff almost seems like it's too good to be true. So some studies have gone to actually compare AMLA versus this stuff called 3-hydroxyl-3-methyl-glutarylcoenzyme coenzyme A, which is basically simvastatin. So this is a statin medication that's commonly prescribed. And so this paper basically is comparing what happens when patients consume AMLA versus simvastatin. Okay, so what they did was they took 60 people that are hyperlipidemic, or people with high lipids, high LDL cholesterol, okay? And they split them into 2 different groups. Group number 1, they took 40 people and they treated them with AMLA, okay? And then they took the other 20 people and they gave them simvastatin. Okay, why they didn't do a 30-30 split, I don't actually know because I didn't design this. But they basically took 40 treated with AMLA, 20 people with simvastatin, and they did this for 42 days or 6 weeks. Now, here's what they found. Total cholesterol went down equivalently in both groups. Okay, the white is AMLA, and then the black is simvastatin. So total cholesterol went down in both groups equivalently. LDL cholesterol went down in both groups equivalently. HDL cholesterol went up in both groups, a little bit more in the simvastatin group but not as much as in the Umla group. The two places where simvastatin won is where it decreased VLDL concentrations and triglyceride concentrations more than Umla. So you might take a look at this and be like, all right, well, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like, Umla didn't win. It was as good as statin medication. But here's the problem. Okay, actually, I'll get to the problem in a second. If you take a look at blood glucose, okay, blood glucose, a commonly prescribed oral glucose medication is a stuff called glimepiride. And if you take patients and you treat them with glimepiride who have an elevated fasting glucose, and you'll see a net reduction in their blood glucose, their fasting blood glucose levels in as little as 3 weeks. So you go from the danger zone right here in red all the way into the happy zone in a short span of time. If you instead treat those same patients with either 1 gram or 2 grams or 3 grams of Umla, you get the same effect. It might not happen as quickly, but by the time you hit the 3-week marker, 1 and 2 grams of Umla are equivalent, and 3 grams of Umla actually outperforms glimepiride. So as far as blood glucose reduction is concerned, Umla is incredibly powerful. Okay, so when it comes to reversing fatty liver, the thing that's really important is that the way to do it is to do 2 things. Number 1, you have to be consistent. When I say consistent, I mean consistent in the types of foods you're eating, consistent in your consumption of a low fat, plant-based whole food diet, consistent use of Umla. And the second thing you got to do is be patient, because fatty liver takes a long time to develop. Fatty liver takes years to be created in the first place. And I know that it's tempting to want to change your diet and see immediate results within the first month or 2 months or 3 months. And sometimes that happens for people, but sometimes it doesn't. And people are always, sometimes people are misled into believing that, oh, just because they don't see a large reduction in their triglycerides or a large reduction in their blood glucose right off the bat, that it's not working. But then over the course of 6 months to 12 months, completely different scenario. So if you are either already following a low-fat plant-based whole food diet or you're considering doing it, have these 2 nuggets in the back of your head, right? Consistency is your best friend, and patience is your best friend. Okay, so here's how this whole process works. Step 1, you consume a low-fat plant-based whole food diet. Okay, there's no question. This is the basis for everything that we do here at Mastering Diabetes. Okay, after you have developed a low-fat plant-based whole food approach, and you've become consistent in your intake of the foods that you see on the screen here, the foods that Robbie was describing earlier. Okay, after you've done that, then adding your daily regimen is going to basically turbocharge your ability to reduce your blood glucose, reverse type 2 diabetes, and reverse fatty liver. Now, this stuff called Umla Green, we made it because we tried out a bunch of Umla products on the market because we were so fascinated by what Dr. Greger from Nutrition Facts was saying about it and what Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn had seen in his patients. And there's no joke that Umla is the most reducing, and it has 0 side effects. The only real known side effect of Umla is that it's got a ridiculously sour flavor and it's really hard to eat. So what we did was we created our own Umla product and we mixed it with green tea. And by doing that, we were able to mask the flavor of Umla and make it much easier to put down. So we created what's called the Umla Green Tea Powder. And you take this stuff and you take a tiny little scoop that comes inside the bottle and you add it to hot water and you make yourself a tea. And then you consume that tea on a daily basis and then boom, now you have a very physiologically relevant and effective dose of Umla going into your body every day. And the combination of a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet with Umla Green has been shown over and over and over again with hundreds of people in our coaching program to be very effective. So if you look at Umla, this is what we did with this stuff, okay? We basically took a 20x Umla concentrate, which means that for every gram of powder in the bottle, there are 20 grams of berries that go into making that. So this stuff is highly concentrated. And it's tested for heavy metals and impurities, and it's very, very, very low, and it meets all standards. And this comes from wild harvested berries found all the way in India. So we actually import this stuff from India. We get a highly concentrated source. It's clean, And then we take this stuff and we mix it with oolong green tea. And by doing so, we end up with a very, very effective dose. So people in our program have been using this now and seeing dramatic results.
Look at this, what you see on the screen here, guys. It's amazing. And it works very quickly. And people love the flavor. It actually works. So it's unbelievable. Here we go. Look at this. I'm excited. My husband's numbers, I forgot mine. They have been really good for the past month. They're even better now. There you go. I believe it. Significantly dropped along with my blood pressure. Both were stuck, and now I think I can get rid of it. It's like adding the low-fat plant-based soul food diet can do so much. And what we've seen when people add this on top has been very, very profound. Here we go. Another testimonial. Past 10 years, below 180. There we go. Boom. Ice water and add a splash of natural juice. There's a lot of different ways you can consume it.
So, like I said earlier, we recommend using Amla Green in combination with a diet. We do have some people who haven't changed their Amla Green by itself, and they still see results. But if you really want long-lasting results over the course of time, then we limit this. So again, step one, integrate a low-fat plant-based whole food diet, and then number two, mix on a daily basis. When you do that, it's metabolic gold. Okay, so here's Amla Green. This stuff is awesome. You can find it on Amazon, and we'll send you guys a link for this stuff. Okay, there's two different sizes. The first one is $24.95 for 30 servings, which is basically less than $1 a day. And then if you get the larger size, which is 90 servings, it's even cheaper. So it's 60 cents a day. So if you, one of the things that we're going to give you guys for participating in this webinar is the 2017 Mastering Diabetes Online Summit. Okay, so if you become a member of the Mastering Diabetes program, then we are going to award you this free bonus here by throwing in the 2017 Mastering Diabetes Online Summit, which included more than 30 hours of interviews with the best of the best. And you see here, you got people like Dr. Neil Barnard, Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Garth Davis, Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, Dr. Matthew Letterman from Forks Over Knives. I mean, these are the guys that are writing the New York Times bestselling books. And we've had a unique opportunity to interview every single one of them and put it together into a really awesome experience. And if you haven't listened to these interviews yet, they're mind-blowing. You really learn a lot. So we're going to throw this in for free for you guys if you become members of the Mastering Diabetes program. And then another thing that we're going to do too is if you become members of the Mastering Diabetes program, we're going to throw in 2 weeks of small group coaching. So small group coaching is actually valued at $250 a month. And we have a lot of people who participate in this, and it's basically weekly video content. It enables you to get the personal attention you're looking for, and enables you to learn from other people in a very small group, concentrated format. So you interact with either myself or Robbie or one of our very talented coaches, and you get to really understand and really focus how to change your diet for the better and how to maximize your health, minimize insulin resistance, reverse type 2 diabetes, and reverse fatty liver. So these weekly small group video conferences, I'll be honest, this is the favorite part of my job. I absolutely love these things because they're so fun to be able to interact with people who are truly dedicated. And we'll give you basically 2 weeks of access to our small group coaching program, again, if you become a member of the Mastering Diabetes program. So the way that, that the finances work out is that the value of each one of the tools that you're going to receive in the program is immense. We have an online course. We give you access to that online course, and that contains step-by-step modules that teach you exactly what to do in order to change your diet and reverse insulin resistance. We give you access to our private Facebook group, and that private Facebook group has almost 1,000 people in it right now, and it's monitored by my wife, Kylie Buckner, who's a registered nurse, And the community inside of there is just incredibly strong. It's filled with people who are changing on a daily basis. And Robbie and I and Kylie and Adam and Mark are seeing every single day. We're seeing success story after success story after success story. And it's really cool to be part of a network of people that are making positive change and doing a phenomenal job. We also give you members-only content. So we'll create content, we'll put it directly in the online course, and only you guys will see that. That does not get sent out to the outside world. We have twice monthly video conferences where you can come and bring your questions to us and ask us and really, try and figure out what is it that you can do in order to maximize your health and maximize your chances of reversing diabetes. And then again, we're going to throw in these 2 for free, the Mastering Diabetes Online Summit and 2 weeks of small group coaching. So the whole thing is basically valued at $5,122, but we're not going to charge that. It's a lot of money. So we have priced our program to be the most affordable program we could possibly make it. And the way that it works, instead of charging you $5,000 for the year, we're going to charge you $249 for the year. It's so inexpensive that it's cheaper than oral medication. It's absolutely cheaper than insulin, and it's an incredibly effective program that has a very, very reasonable price. So if you become a member of the Mastering Diabetes program, we will give you the online course. We will give you access to our Facebook group. We will give you bi-weekly large group video conferencing. You will also receive these 2 bonuses, the Mastering Diabetes Online Summit, as well as 2 weeks of small group coaching. And all of that is only cost you $249 for the entire year. So if you're considering participating, we highly recommend it because these bonuses are something that we don't give away all the time.
Absolutely. We would love to have you join us.
Absolutely. And the last thing that we're going to do, this is the extra bonus that we're going to throw into today's webinar, which is that we're going to give you guys a code for showing up to the webinar. We're going to give you a code that basically allows you to buy one, get one 50% off. So you'll receive an email where you can, if you purchase 2 bottles, you'll get the first bottle at full price and the second bottle is at 50% off. So all you got to do is take the code that we send you in your email, which is a unique code specifically for you, and go redeem that on Amazon, and then you'll basically get you'll get your second bottle for 50% off. And that's a webinar bonus that we're giving to you guys because we love you guys and we're very happy that you attended this webinar.
And like Sarah said, you add 2 bottles to your cart, and then you add the discount code, and that's how you get the discount.
So you guys will see an image on your screen, and you can get started with the Mastering Diabetes program. If that works, take full control. You're ready to move, your health to the next level. Our team is here to work with that. You get the guidance and support and information you need. And we have a policy in the Facebook, which is if you create an original post, a member of our team will get back to you within 24 no questions asked. We usually get back to you within 4 or 5 hours at the most, and you'll see there's a lot from other members as well.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for support, you're looking for guidance, you want to be part of a community,
the community support and teamwork and just like we're in this together energy in the Facebook group is so fun to see, and we really closely monitor it and make sure it's nothing but supportive. So we'd love to have you join. Like Sarah said, our team is responding to comments within 24 hours. We want to be there with you every step of the way of the journey. Any question that comes up, I love to answer. We want to help you. Other people in the community, they respond usually within minutes. It's such an active, really helpful community. So we'd love to have you join us. Come check it out.
Beautiful. So let's get to some questions here.
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So here's the first question. The first question is, does Amla Green contain caffeine? Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn my my screen share off, and I'm going to show my face, and we can all talk together.
Let's do it. It's been really fun to have everybody with us.
Right now.
Good questions coming.
Hopefully you can see me.
Excited to answer them. Yes, we can see you, and we're going to answer all these questions that came in.
Okay. So here's the first question. Does Almond Green have caffeine? And the answer is yes, it has caffeine. Right now, the option is to consume this stuff right here. Almond Green, it's got a little caffeine in it. It's got 1/4 the amount of caffeine as coffee. So coffee is 75 to 200 milligrams per cup, and Almond Green has less than 50. So if you're sensitive to caffeine, I can tell you two things. Number one, we're coming out with a caffeine-free version relatively soon. And then number two, this than you would get if you were drinking the same amount of coffee. So personally, caffeine that comes inside of this. And I know other people in our community who are also relatively sensitive to caffeine. They can't feel it. So don't let that stop you from trying a very effective product.
Okay. Somebody says, is fasting best for curing everything? It's a funny question. Fasting is certainly great on a lot of levels. There's no question about it. Intermittent fasting. We have recently done an interview with Dr. Alan Goldhammer from True North Health Center, and he talks about extended fasting in a safe, medically advised environment. I wouldn't say it's a cure for everything, as to be like literal, but fasting is definitely a very beneficial process for a wide range of health problems, no question about it. Just have to make sure it's done safely. Okay. Okay. Somebody says consistency is my problem.
It's your liver image, and it's an expensive process, and you go to the doctor and they put you in, I think they give you a CAT scan, and they can actually take a look at your liver and try to find out, whether it has anything to it, whether it's large, whether it has any in it, fatty liver. But I would take a look at something else. Go into fast, and you're fasting glucose, enough of just those. Okay, if your cholesterol is elevated, look at. If your cholesterol is elevated, if your triglycerides are elevated, and three of those, then that's a really, really, really strong indicator that you do have fatty liver disease. Another thing that you can do to actually measure whether your liver enzymes, what are an ALT, those will also. So if blood glucose, cholesterol, triglycerides, AST, ALT, if those are elevated, or if some combination of these are all elevated, then I would say red flag right there, indicator. The last thing is protein. C-reactive protein is it's a measurement of total body inflammation. It's a protein that your liver makes, and it throws into when your inflammation increases, CRP. That's another indicator that your liver is in a state of distress.
Hey Cyrus, you're it's a little hard to hear you. You're going in and out a little bit. It might be better if we turn off the video and just it might be less on the internet bandwidth.
Okay, let me try that. All right, can you hear me right now?
Yeah, you're a little bit better now. Let's see if it sticks.
Okay, cool. All right.
This is a good one. Why does the liver improve in the beginning on a keto diet?
Okay, why does your liver improve at the beginning when you're following a ketogenic diet? Okay, this is a great question. So the reason why ketogenic diets, why low carbohydrate diets, the reason why they work in the short term is because practically everything is driven through weight. Or to drop your fasting blood glucose is to lose weight. So if you simply lose weight, then a number of biomarkers will improve. And because low carbohydrate diets are one of the most effective weight loss strategies that promotes rapid weight loss, doctors often go to them very quickly because they say, oh, look, if you eat the low carbohydrate diet, then you'll lose weight. And then as a result of losing weight, your blood glucose can normalize. As a result of losing weight, your triglycerides come down. As a result of losing weight, your cholesterol comes down. But what happens in the short long term, as your liver and your blood vessels start to accumulate sustained fatty acid accumulation, sustained cholesterol accumulation, then they develop metabolic derangements, which then results in a chronic inflammation, which can then progress to any number of other chronic diseases.
Terrific.
All right.
I'd like to add one thing to that. So another thing is you'll actually hear a lot of the people on the other side say, oh, the benefits of a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet are that they just lose weight. So just because they're losing weight, they're getting better. But that, of course, always losing weight leads to better results, basically no matter how you do it. But the difference is when you talk about our program, the one thing that we love to talk about and emphasize is the level of insulin sensitivity that we achieve while getting all the results, while losing weight, while it's all happening. And that is super important. So if you've been to any of our other webinars where we went deeper into insulin sensitivity and how it's linked to all these other diseases, you want to be insulin sensitive. So that's another piece of this whole puzzle here that we can't emphasize enough. Okay, let's see.
So here, some studies that show the risk of chronic disease in low carb. So Vivian, the answer is yes, we do. We've actually done webinars that specifically highlight that. I didn't want to go into too much detail about that right now to cover, but go to Mastering Diabetes, click on blog up in the nav bar. And then as you scroll down and take a look at the articles we've written, we have a number of about low carbohydrate diets and about ketogenic diets. In fact, we just published an article about ketogenic diets with video in it. And if you just want to sit there and watch the video, that's one way to do all the learning. But the blog has a lot of information and a lot of reference for all these peer reviews that you're requesting. So that if you need more, then feel free to send us an email at team, and I'll get you everything.
Okay. All right. We got some really great questions coming in. So I'm going to answer two of these really quickly. Somebody says, my whole food plant-based diet gives me high blood glucose readings. What should I do? Okay. This is the type of stuff that we love to troubleshoot. We would love to have you come into the program, and we're going to see what you're doing. We're going to communicate with you. We're going to figure out exactly what's happening. How high is your blood glucose? What time? What are you eating? What medications are you taking? What's your exercise like? We're going to figure it out. So it's hard to answer exactly here, but there are nuanced things that can be done to troubleshoot, even if you're already following the whole food plant-based diet. So we'd love to work with you. And we hope the price is very affordable, and you're welcome to join. Now, somebody says here that are all green light foods equally welcome in the diet? And the answer is pretty much yes. So everything in that green light category is pretty much yes. There could be a couple little troublesome foods for some people. Maybe intact whole oat groats for some people in the beginning might be a little bit troublesome. But again, this is something we figure out. We work on the nuances together through the process of seeing what's going on a daily basis. I mean, that's the way we want to work with you. We want you guys to get the most amazing results. We love answering questions. But in general, the answer is yes. Green light foods, eat them to your heart's content. Let's see what else.
Okay, so Suzette writes a question. She says, consistency is my problem. Suzette, this is exactly what here's what I would recommend. In that small group coaching I was talking about, get accountability from both the master members of the program. So if I were in your position and you're sort of looking for more an ability to be more consistent and have more accountability, you will give you to small group coach, try it out, learn questions, participate. And if you continue doing that, and we can be an integral part of your life. But if you don't need, you feel like the Diabetes Pro totally too. But we specialize in helping people develop a set of habits, and by doing so, this improvements in.
Okay,
now,
guys. I'm sorry.
I'm not diabetic.
I'm going to try and answer some of these questions that are coming in right now as quickly and efficiently as I can. Somebody says, is the green light list include tofu and soy milk? So tofu is not on the green light list because that's a processed food. So the whole version of that would be edamame. And again, that would be another food that sits in the green light category, but we would, again, want to be a little bit conservative with and watch and see how it works with your body, because all soy products are roughly 40% of calories from fat. So it's a higher fat food. It's going to have more total grams of fat, and we're trying to keep you under 30 grams of total fat per day as you get into the program fully. So when you come to the program, it's designed in a step-by-step manner. So we don't expect you to come in and just change everything overnight. That's too overwhelming, and that usually doesn't work. So in the beginning, you work on just breakfast. Once you master that, you master lunch, and then you master dinner. So we would be cautious about the soy consumption over time and figure that out as you transition. And soy milk, again, it's another processed food. That's limited. That's not in the green unlimited category, but that would be in the yellow light category. It's not like a complete no-no, but there are better options. And somebody's saying, I want to go buy Amla Green now. So the coupon code is going to come in your email. So everybody on this webinar, you will each get a unique code. So that's going to get emailed to you. And glad to have you checking out. You're really going to enjoy it. Okay, somebody asked a question about using, it was a powder. So they said, yeah, so barley, basically barley flour. Somebody's asking, can I have a flour? So again, we'd rather have you eat just whole barley. The flour, turning it into a flour is going to cause blood glucose challenges, and it's not ideal. But again, everybody's at different phases in their program, in their journey. We're not here like the food police saying you have to this, have to do that. We're about working with you, figuring out what you like, what your goals are, and monitoring the results and seeing how it goes. So that food you're talking about here it's very healthy. I mean, that's probably a staple for many long-lived societies. It's just that we're trying to optimize your health and your goals as best as we can. Okay, let's see. Somebody's asking about raw chocolate. So can I have
Robbie?
Yes. We can hear you. We heard that. We heard you say Robbie.
Oh, you can hear now?
It's going in and out. It's really hard to hear you. Somebody asks, can I drink Amla while taking Crestor? So that should be no problem. Hopefully you'll eventually not need the Crestor. But check with your doctor if you have any concerns or you're second guessing anything. Check with your doctor to get confirmation. Okay, let's see. Can you give us one breakfast recipe idea? Breakfast is the hardest. That's a great question. Okay, so a breakfast idea, there's a lot of options, but one simple one is literally to eat 4 of your favorite fruits. 4 servings of your favorite fruits, and that's it. You can sit down and have that. You could add chia seeds to that breakfast. You could add vegetables to that breakfast, but in most cases, just 4 fruits as a breakfast, that can be in and of itself a delicious breakfast. It's really that simple. Cyrus and I have eaten breakfast like that for combined well over 25 years. That's what we eat and love it. So definitely it can be as simple as just eating your favorite fruits. You could have potatoes for breakfast. You could have, potatoes and squash. You can eat anything, any low-fat, plant-based whole food meal you can have any time of the day. I know we have a lot of conceptions of what breakfast has to look like, but if you're craving something you might eat for lunch or dinner for breakfast, go ahead. You can totally do that. No problem with that. Somebody says, just to clarify, was that 30 grams or 30%? Yes, 30 grams of total fat, and as far as a percentage, our recommendation is no more than 15% of calories coming from fat as a maximum. closer to 10% is going to get better results. Okay, let's see. All right.
Hey,
so, yeah, try again, Cyrus. Let's see. I heard that.
okay, cool. Sorry if you it was difficult to hear me. There's a couple of questions here about, I don't have diabetes. Is Amla going to help me? The answer is yes, it absolutely will. So even if you're not living with diabetes, over the course of time, tissues all around your body have likely accumulated metabolic distress, and that includes, fatty acid deposits inside of your blood, fatty acid deposits inside of your heart, fatty acid deposits inside of your liver, and inside of your muscle. And so even if you, don't have elevated blood glucose or cholesterol right now, but maybe you're at risk for things like the metabolic syndrome, or maybe you're gaining a little bit of weight, Amla is incredibly beneficial. It's the #1 most widely prescribed food in all of Ayurvedic medicine. And, Indians have been using it for 2,000 years to solve a number of conditions, including things like fatty liver and skin conditions and increased hair growth and increased nail growth and improving vision and digestive problems. I mean, the list goes on and on. It almost looks like it's too good to be true. So point being is that, even if you don't have diabetes, even if you don't have fatty liver, Amla is still something that's very, very effective, and we highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
Now here's another question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, somebody says, do you recommend raw? So our program is not specifically about being raw food or any particular orientation there. It's just about low-fat, plant-based whole foods. So any combination of that is what we recommend. If somebody wants to eat more raw food, we're going to show you how to do that. If you want to eat more of the plant-based cooked foods, we're going to teach you how to do that. So it's not one way or the other for us.
Now, Dorothy writes, she says, my A1C, I'm on a whole food plant-based diet for the past 5 months, and it has helped decrease the symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, but my A1C is still at 12.2. So what's going on? So Dorothy, you say here in your comment that you are on a whole food plant-based diet, but if your A1C is at a 12.2, then my guess is that your total fat content is still too high. I don't know if you're consuming things like large amounts of nuts and seeds and avocados and olives and or any version of vegetable oil or coconut oil. But if you are consuming those foods, then it's going to negatively affect your blood glucose. Your glucose will go up and your A1C will go up when you consume those foods. I'm not saying you can't ever eat them. I'm saying you probably are over-consuming those foods, and that's probably causing the problem. I'm glad to hear that your rheumatoid arthritis has gone down, but if you make that simple change, that can make a big difference for you. And I'm not sure if you're in our program right now or not, but we teach people exactly how to do that in case it's a little bit confusing for you.
Absolutely. Somebody says, do you work with people who've had bypass surgery who's now pre-diabetic? I had surgery at age 41. So we work with all kinds of people. We teach you, there's no contraindications to eating more fruits and vegetables if you've had bypass surgery. It's only going to help. So we teach you the nutrition, the lifestyle, and we have you work with your doctor. So all the other cardiovascular issues, your regular checkups, all that stuff has got to still happen. It's still important. You got to stay in touch with your team. But we are going to teach you how to optimize your nutrition and see some amazing things happen while doing that. Jenny,
yep.
Every question and answer is more knowledge. That's great, Jenny. Appreciate that. Glad you're sticking around with us. We love answering these questions.
There's a question here about international shipping. Does Amla Green ship internationally, and when is it going to be available to do so? So right now, it's kind of difficult for us to get Amla international. However, we are solving that problem, and we are likely going to have Amla shipping, international shipping available. I think it'll be ready within the next month and a half. So don't quote me on that, but we're working really hard to make that possible. So if you're looking forward to it and you live in Canada, or you live in Europe, or you live in Australia, then we're trying to help you guys out as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I saw Kylie just answer James' question here, but James was asking, is there a limit on fats like coconut oil and avocado and stuff like that? And the answer is yes. even if you're eating plant-based foods like coconut oil, I mean, olive oil, those are plant-based. They are high in fat that easily gets you above the 30-gram limit and absolutely leads to insulin resistance. So we see this in all of our members, and we see it so clearly in type 1 diabetes. That's myself and Cyrus, because it's such an objective, clear condition. We're always measuring our blood glucose, we're calculating our carbohydrate intake, and we know how much insulin we're injecting. We can easily see how these foods are impacting our insulin sensitivity, and time again, even just a little bit more avocado, we see the difference. So we don't want anybody to be eating in a way that's making themselves more insulin resistant. Let's see here. All right, so we have somebody asking about coffee. So, the thing about coffee is it's not the end of the world. It's usually not the biggest issue to change in the beginning. We'd rather see you get energy from sleep and sound nutrition. So it's not recommended on our program, but it's also not, the biggest deal ever as far as, it just depends where you're at and what your goals are. But we don't recommend it. Let's see. What other questions do we have here? Somebody says, would it be horrible if I were to eat 90% fruit or more? The answer is no. As long as you're eating whole fruit, there's nothing wrong with eating large amounts of fruit. There's so much evidence and research. The more fruit you eat, the healthier you are. It's very clear. All right, let's see here. Somebody asked, how is your diet different from the Forks Over Knives meal planner? So the Forks Over Knives meal planner is an amazing service, and there's lots of recipes that would be 100% complete our program in there. The only difference would be in some situations where we are saying, hey, it's not as good to have a pasta, like a brown rice pasta, versus we want to see you guys eating, the whole brown rice. That's really maybe some of the only nuanced differences there. But in general, if you're just getting started, the Forks Meal Planner is a great transition tool, and there's a lot of recipes. You can swap the recipes and take out the ones that have any of the more processed things. So it's very customizable. There's plenty of fruit breakfast recipes in there. We're adding more and more. So it's very highly recommended. Somebody says, I think we already answered that one though. I think we've covered majority of the questions here. Let's see, I think there's a couple more. Let's see. Can a teen use Amla? Yes, teens can use Amla, right, Cyrus?
Absolutely, no question about it.
Totally. Okay, let's see. And this says raw cacao. Raw cacao, that's personal choice. It's a stimulant there, but that's okay. Again, these are nuanced things. We want people to focus on the bigger picture. In general, most people, one way or the other, it's not a big deal, but personally, I don't consume raw cacao. Well, let's see. Cyrus, is Amla bad for adrenal fatigue?
Is Amla bad for adrenal fatigue? I think the reason that question is being asked is because caffeine is contraindicated for adrenal fatigue, meaning if you have adrenal fatigue, don't consume caffeine. So I'm going to go so far as to say I'm not an adrenal fatigue expert. But I guess the question really becomes, if you know that you're very sensitive to caffeine, then this might not be the right option for you. I'll say that right off the bat. I know that we have had other people who have had adrenal issues who have been using Amla, and they seem to find that it doesn't exacerbate any of their problems, and it helps with their metabolic health. So from what I know, I don't think that there's any really problem having adrenal fatigue and continuing to use Amla Green.
Yeah. Totally. Okay, Ravi, somebody says, what about metabolic cleaning kits for fatty liver? So like Cyrus said in the presentation, the best way to reverse fatty liver is low-fat, plant-based, whole food nutrition, whole foods, and amla. You put those two together, there is nothing that's going to be better than that. So there's all kinds of kits out there, very expensive. Things come in packages. It's usually some processed food in there. There's nothing better than just eating whole natural foods and using amla, which is a totally natural substance. It's just, I mean, it's the best combination. So, and it would be much less expensive. I know these kits out there are very, very expensive. Okay, let's see here. Does timing of meals matter? It can definitely matter. We again, if people are trying to see improvements in their fasting blood glucose, sometimes eating late at night can affect what the number they see in the morning, and they want to make that improve. So in our program, you'll see how we emphasize for most people eating your biggest meal in the middle of the day, so you're not super hungry at night. But in general, we don't really have guidelines on exactly when to eat because we want you to just listen to your body, and when you're hungry, you get to eat. That's the beautiful part about this program. When you're eating the green light foods, you get to eat as much as you want, pretty much whenever you want. That's great. If you don't have fatty liver but diabetes, do you still recommend amla? Absolutely. Absolutely, no question about it. You will see it lower your fasting blood glucose. We've had even people with type 1 diabetes seeing benefit from using amla. So it benefits everybody. Definitely try it out. See what happens. You can see what happens in your own body. Somebody asked, is fasting part of your program? So yes, we teach intermittent fasting. Cyrus has done some webinars on that. We have a great article on our website about how to do intermittent fasting, and it can be very, very effective. No question about it. Okay, let's see. All right, what else do we got here? All right, somebody says, I have no gallbladder. Do I need a certain amount of dietary fat to stimulate the production of bile?
What was the question? How does that work?
I have no gallbladder. Do I need a certain amount of dietary fat to stimulate the production of bile?
No. So, okay, if you don't have a gallbladder is basically required to store bile in between meals. So your liver manufactures bile. It gets stored in your gallbladder, and then the next time you eat a meal containing fat-rich foods, the bile is then released into your small intestine so that you can emulsify fatty acids. So if you don't have a gallbladder, that's okay, because the most important thing to realize is that you just can't store large amounts of bile. You can still manufacture it, you just can't store large amounts. So the simple way to get around that is to just minimize your total fat intake. It's just that simple. And if you do that, then you decrease your biological need for the production of bile in the first place. So that's the most important thing you can do, and it works like a charm. It's very effective. We have a lot of people in our program who have actually who don't have a gallbladder, and they find tremendous improvements by adopting a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet.
Perfect. Okay. Will this work for someone who has hyperinsulinemia?
Hyperinsulinemia, absolutely. Hyperinsulinemia is basically what happens when you're insulin resistant. So if you decrease your level of insulin resistance, then hyperinsulinemia goes away. So 100%, if you're living with hyperinsulinemia and you know that, then this is the most, not only an effective technique, it is the most effective technique, period, end of story.
Terrific. Okay. Somebody says, I have diabetic peripheral neuropathy in hands and feet and torso, making exercise very painful. Will more exercise help reduce the fatty liver? So it sounds like a rough situation. Sorry that you're going through that, but I can tell you, number one, starting with the diet and amla should hopefully reduce that so you can move your body. That would be the place to start. Of course, activity helps reduce fatty liver, no question. But activity, you can't outrun a bad diet. You can't outperform a bad diet in regards to physical activity. So you got to make sure you start with the basics: the diet, adding amla. That's the place to start.
All right, so why don't we stop there? I feel like we've gotten to most of the questions. And thanks again for participating in today's webinar. It's been really, really cool to see so much interest in this topic. And if you are interested in either joining the program or participating or buying Amla Green, we highly recommend it. Check your email and to get the coupon code for Amla Green for your buy one, get one 50% off. And then click on the image that you see in front of you, and that'll take you directly to a place where you can sign up for the coaching program. And we are looking forward to seeing you on the inside. Have a great night tonight, guys.
Bye, everybody.